So we've been attacking, we've been investigating, we've been raising the issues of the relative role of language and religion in what we often call ethnic conflicts or ethno-nationalistic conflicts. So what I've got here, you'll see below a link. You'll see 3 links. The first link is to a YouTube video, and it is a lecture by Rogers Brubaker, and he is an American sociologist who in recent years has done a lot of very interesting work re-looking at this, and we've done this before in other lectures, the problems with talking about identity, the problems about talking about groups, how common constructivism has become, and how it has become an old and blunt tool, and he has made some suggestions about alternatives. And so we've looked at some of Rogers Brubaker's work on those issues before. And what I've got here is I've got a link to a YouTube video. So that's one of the first links down there. And then there are 2 other links that I've included. Although you don't need any of these links, because the YouTube video is on one of the playlists of the YouTube channel. And both of these books, one book and one article, are easily found by anyone on the Google Drive. All you need to do is to go down to Brubaker or to search in Google looking for Brubaker. And in his book, The Grounds for Difference, there is a chapter, and it is called Language, Religion, and the Politics of Difference. And that chapter had previously been published in a journal called Nations and Nationalism, and it's in the 2013 edition of that journal, and it's by the same title, Language, Religion, and the Politics of Difference. And in this chapter, in this article, which is reproduced as a chapter, and all of these he produces in a lecture that he has given on the same title. He talks about how similar and different language and religion are, and the relative role of language and religion in nationalisms. And it is really Rogers Brubaker's analysis of these dynamics which has informed my preferred way of understanding the relative role of religion and the relative role of language in ethno-nationalism and in ethnic conflicts. So briefly, governments, most modern liberal democratic governments ensure, are committed to religious freedom. There are parts of the world, parts of even our region, where religious freedom is not as widespread as it should be. But most governments have a liberal policy to religious worship, to religious conversion. Not all, but most. And certainly in the West, it has been a long time since there were any legitimate objections about religious freedom. And so the Thai government, for example, allows the construction of churches, of new religious groups, of mosques, and of Islamic schools. They have to be registered, but that is a common thing. But at the same time as having this liberal attitude towards religion, it is more often than not the case that governments have a very illiberal attitude towards language, and that language policy, very few governments have a bilingual language policy. Signage is very rarely in more than one language. Public education is offered in just the national language. Legislation is promulgated in one national language. And that in immigrant communities overseas, religious change is actually very rare. Religious change does occur, and it occurs more amongst some ethnic groups than others. But despite the fact that religion it changes very little, if you look at immigrant communities overseas, and we've addressed issues of assimilation, we've addressed issues of accommodation, we've addressed issues of multiculturalism. When we look at the dynamics of assimilation, accommodation, multiculturalism, when we compare changes in religion and changes in language, there is relatively little change in religion compared to change in language. And so amongst second or third generation Muslim immigrants to Europe and to other parts of the West, if you look at Buddhist immigrants, is there a large-scale religious change? There isn't. At the same time, there is extensive language loss and language change. And this is one of the ways for us to prepare to begin to talk about the relative importance of language and religion in the role of ethnic identities. So your task is to do two things. The first is to watch this lecture by Rogers Brubaker, and the second is for you to read through the article or the chapter in this book on which it is based. Okay, thanks very much.